replacing fossil fuels with renewables, wind, solar, geothermal, other, small-scale hydro, tidal, and wave power, biomass. Harnessing the wind, centerpiece of Plan B energy economy. Abundant North Dakota, Kansas, and Texas alone could satisfy U.S. energy needs. Widespread in every country. Increasingly inexpensive. Plan B goal: 3 million MW of installed capacity worldwide by 2020. Need 1.5 million 2 MW turbines installed by 2020. The power of the sun. Technologies include photovoltaics, PV, solar thermal power plants, solar hot water and space heaters. Sunlight hitting the Earth in 1 hour could power global economy for 1 year. Plan B goal: solar heating, electricity each exceed 1 million MW installed capacity by 2020. Geothermal, energy from the Earth. Heat in the upper 6 miles of Earth's crust contains 50,000 times the energy found in global oil and gas reserves. Plan B goal: increase geothermal heating 5-fold to 500,000 thermal MW, and geothermal electricity production 22-fold to 200,000 MW by 2020. World electricity generation by source in 2006, and in the Plan B economy of 2020. Plan B to reduce carbon fuels 80% by 2020 from their current share in the energy mix of about 66% to a 4.6% share. This is entirely economically feasible. In fact, it is economic suicide to not do so, given the fact that if we do not do so, with the world following along, we are headed to a 30% reduction in global and US GDP as a result, slaughtering the financial futures of our children, according to the widely respected World Bank economist, Stern. Yes, there are costs associated with this restructuring, but what kind of deal is it to spend 2% of GDP to avoid a 30% reduction in GDP? Pretty good deal. Pretty insane not to grab it. The bulk of the carbon reduction is replaced by an explosion in renewable energy, which China is proving entirely feasible, adding the equivalent of 1 new coal-fired power plant every 2 weeks in wind power. Recall that in the US we have 8 times more wind than we need to power the entire economy, with enough in North Dakota, Kansas, and Texas to do so all by themselves. 40% of the new energy is wind, accounting for a 39% increase, to the delight of farmers that see wind towers double or more their financial yield per acre. 11% of the increase is solar, with geothermal and biomass making up the rest. Start loving. Ending net deforestation, planting trees. Ending net deforestation by 2020 can reduce annual CO2 emissions by 1.5 billion tons of carbon. Planting trees and adopting less intensive farming and land management practices can stabilize soils and sequester carbon. Adding these measures to our renewable energy goals will allow us to reduce net CO2 emissions 80% by 2020. Plan B carbon dioxide emissions reduction goals for 2020. Although rapidly increasing, the world currently puts about 9.2 billion tons of CO2 into the atmosphere. Adding it to the 500 billion tons placed there by us this last 100 years, all of which stays there roughly 200 to 2 years. Plan B is a totally doable plan to reduce that 80% by 2020, with a 3.1 billion ton reduction replacing fossil fuels with renewables, 1.5 billion tons eliminating forest deforestation, 1.2 billion tons restructuring transportation, making it much less gas intensive and more public transportation centric, almost 1 billion tons reduction from planting trees to sequester carbon, and more than 500 million tons by managing soils to sequester carbon. None of this is theoretical, all of it is being done successfully in various parts of the world. Do this, make it happen, or you've doomed your children to a hell of a world, unlike the Eden that every generation since the dawn of time has enjoyed. What will be your legacy? Make no mistake, this is the minimum reductions by 2020 that might avert the worst of the economic and civilizational collapse that otherwise you are torturing your children and grandchildren with. Start loving. Putting a price on carbon, or actually getting the real and total costs of fossil fuels on the bill before you knowingly pass the tab on to your children and grandchildren. Problem: price of fossil fuels does not reflect costs of climate change. Markets not telling ecological truth. Solution: tax restructuring. Plan B proposal: raise tax on carbon emissions by $20 per ton each year, to exceed $200 per ton of carbon by 2020. Offset carbon tax with reduction in income taxes. Start loving here. So, you get a quote on adding a room on your house. Turns out the contractor will have to destroy thousands of dollars in landscaping on your property to do it. Do you expect that on the bill? Of course. If it is left off the bill you sue, right? The coal and oil companies have gamed the system in Washington to the cost of your children's blood in Iraq, the 18,000 Americans that die every year from their pollution, the hundreds of billions in annual war for oil costs, and the cost of your children's and grandchildren's mutilated landscaping is left off the bill. But your kids and grandkids will pay. They will pay in blood. What kind of a creature are you to let this happen? Start loving. A wartime mobilization. On entering World War II, the US mobilized resources and completely restructured its economy within months. Protecting the US drove this mobilization. Saving civilization will require action equal in urgency, but much larger in scale. We have the technologies necessary to implement Plan B. What is needed now is the political will to do so. Pieces of the puzzle. Countries and cities around the world give a sense of what is possible. In Copenhagen, 36% of commuters bike to work. Iran cut its rapid population growth rate from 4.2% in the early 1980s to 1.3% in 2006 through national literacy, health, and family planning programs. China has 40 million rooftop solar water heaters harnessing energy equal to the output of 54 coal-fired power plants. Japan's high-speed rail system moves hundreds of thousands of passengers each day, measuring delays in seconds. Once almost treeless, South Korea has reforested 65% of its land. In the Philippines, 19 million people get electricity from geothermal power plants. In Germany, a systematic shift of taxes from labor to energy reduced annual CO2 emissions by 20 million tons, and created 250,000 jobs between 1999 and 2003. Denmark gets 20% of its electricity from wind, and is aiming for 50%. Proposals for 90 coal-fired power plants in the United States have been shelved since 2007. Let us get to work. Saving civilization is not a spectator sport. Lester R. Brown. What you can do. Educate yourself on environmental issues. Spread the word. Letters to the editor, op-eds, internet. Get politically involved. Let elected officials know what is important. Take action in an area that is important to you, such as closing coal-fired power plants, tax restructuring, or ending net deforestation. Start loving here. This is BS. This is a far more dangerous, infinitely larger threat than with the Nazis 80 years ago. Go to anti-violent war. Wage the toughest, most committed, most heroic, most sustained, most courageous love you've ever witnessed throughout history, or your children are doomed. No, you or anyone knows exactly what to do. Agents of change never do. But their hearts are the wisest, most powerful force in the universe, and once committed, They figure it out. They are divine, and the divine is all that can save our children now. Have faith. Start loving. The choice is ours. Will we stay with business as usual, and preside over an economy that continues to destroy its natural support systems until it destroys itself? Or will we adopt Plan B, and be the generation that changes direction, moving the world onto a path of sustained progress? The choice is ours. It will be made by our generation, but it will affect life on Earth for all generations to come. Visit our website for more information and free full-text copies of all Earth Policy Institute publications. www.earthpolicy.org. The greatest generation stood and defeated the Nazi juggernaut, averting a global disaster. This is World War III, but the enemy is us, our apathy, our denial, our greed for selfish pleasures. Will we rise up and defeat that enemy, or be the first generation to leave an irreversibly dying, hellish planet to our children? We have 20 months to turn the 2012 election into the death of our insane, economically and civilizationally suicidal energy policy into something our children can live with. Defeating the global Nazi threat was worth the comforts, pleasures, conveniences, normalcy, the very lives of our greatest generation. And you? 20 months. Egypt shows us the way. Wisconsin shows us the way. Women's suffrage shows us the way. Civil rights movement shows us the way. All the pundits said Egypt's revolution would fail because it had no organizations, no leaders. It succeeded exactly because their hearts were not shackled by leaders and organizations. There was first a small, unknown outbreak of hearts pitted toward justice and humanity, and a mass spreading took place of heart, the most powerful force in the universe. Heart organizes, but it never waits for organizations or leaders. It acts. Move into your heart. Act. If others follow, that's their business. Acting from the heart, pitting your heart against the greatest disaster ever to face humanity, that's your responsibility, and no excuse in the world can relieve you of it. Start loving. Wage love, or civilization dies.